So we have another wonderful keynote. So it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Raquel Rolnik, who's the head of Design and Planning, the department at the University of São Paulo, Brazil. She earned her undergraduate degree at the University of São Paulo in 1978, a master's degree in architecture and urbanism from the University of São Paulo in 1981, and a PhD in history from New York University Graduate School of Arts and Science in 1995, so a true transdisciplinary scholar. Raquel is an architect and an urban planner whose career has focused on a combination of scholarship and activism in relation to planning, urban land policy and housing. She leads, and my Spanish is not very good, Labcidade, is that the right pronunciation?
Labcidade.
Perfect, thank you. An action research centre which features her current research on housing justice, including mapping evictions taking place in São Paulo. I've been looking at this on Twitter, it's amazing, and working with organisations towards socially just solutions. Over the span of her career, she's held a myriad of positions, including Director of the Planning Department in São Paulo, National Secretary for Urban Programmes of the Brazilian Ministry of Cities, and critically, she was the UN Special Rapporteur on Adequate Housing from 2008 to 2014. Of course, Raquel is well known as the author of numerous articles and books, including her wonderful book, Urban Warfare, Housing Under the Empire of Finance, published by Verso in 2019, in which she discusses the financialization of housing and how it's become a global catastrophe, and how our cities, and of course this is what we've been talking about today and yesterday, how our cities have been sold to developers and banks while supported by government-facilitated schemes. So it's a real honour to have Raquel. Raquel unfortunately got COVID, so she's very, very kindly agreed to talk to us and hopefully is going to feel okay. So over to you, Raquel. Welcome.
Thank you very, very much. I wish I was there. Everything was perfect and prepared to be there. But unfortunately, I got COVID. And I'm still recovering. So if I stop a little bit just to have some water, you just apologize me. But I could not miss this opportunity of being there. And I really appreciate. And I would start by saying, and I thank you so much, not only Loretta, but all the team that I know have worked very hard to be possible to have this wonderful conversation, international conversation that I am missing. And this is my regret, my deep regret. And I would start by saying, when I got the first invitation to be part of the conference, and the honor to be a keynote speaker, I immediately said, oh, I'm sorry, what are you going to do in a conference on gentrification? I don't work with this concept. I don't use this concept in my own work. This concept, I know what it is, but it's not really useful, and I'm not really into this discussion. But then Loretta replied, that's exactly why we want you in the conference. So yes, I would say, and that was the title, and I don't know what the title is not good now. My title is Let's Name It. Dispossession and Displacements in Contemporary Urban Restructuring. So that's my framework, and that's what I'm going to start and I'm going to bring to you. And I think it would be very useful not to talk generally, although I would love, and I think my book Urban Warfare has done that, to see how much we are talking about a global process, how much we are talking about a planetary process. I'm got excited, of course. Let me calm down. And yes, it's a planetary phenomenon, and of course, absolutely path dependent on the actual political economy of land, political economy of housing and city development in each place, the history of the things, the nature of the state and the state building. But we are living under the empire of finance, and finance has taken over the production of cities and the management of cities so far. So I would say that under this empire, and it's a new colonization and it's a new colonial empire, in terms that we are not only talking about real occupation of space, and yes, we are talking about occupation, physical occupation, territorial control of spaces by finance, but also we are talking about the construction and the coloniality which endures colonization of the historical colonization, coloniality in terms of the complete change, not only in public policies and public paradigms, but also in subjectivities. And the idea, and this is the main prevalent hegemonic idea in everywhere, with nuances, of course, and differences and diversities, of course, which is the mantra that the best use of a particular space in any place, in any city in the planet today, is the one that provides more interest, remuneration, and capital appreciation for the invested capital that built it. And I call it rent-seeking landscapes, which are the things that are being built, those odd artifacts that we can see all over the place, corporate towers, international brand hotels, shopping malls, landscapes who are serving and are there only to be an outlet for the surplus of financial capital, which is floating over the planet, looking where to park, where to land in order to extract rent in 100% extractivist logic that has nothing to do with the real needs, with the real necessities of the lives of the people. So this is very important because we are talking about the whole transformation of the production and management of space under the empire of finance, in which basically, and the new instruments, yes, it's a combination of planning instruments like public-private partnerships, urban renewal schemes, urban renewal projects, and many other planning changes and planning transformation with particular financial instruments like real estate investment trusts and other forms that made possible for capital in a very, very accelerated way. Yes, we are talking about digital economy and the digital revolution, which is a very important part of it, that provides the possibility of financial capital to get in and out rapidly from built space, to benefit from built space, to circulate in out from built space, and to represent the circulation of the built space in the financial sphere, and in a very rapid speed, in a very intense speed, I would say in a bit, capital can move really over the planet from place to place, enter and exit with the yield, with the interest, with the rent that is taken from built space. And since we have more and more accumulated financial capital, because we are talking about a moment where concentration of capital, concentration of income, is something which is absolutely, absolutely crescent, increasing and being larger and larger and larger. And this mass of capital, this electronic cloud, this black cloud that is floating over the world, looking where to park, it's have met in built space a perfect collateral in a way that built space became a very important and central asset for financial capital. And I will not develop more than that, and maybe we can discuss that in our discussion session afterwards on all the mechanisms and ways and the changes that came together with that. But I thought it was very important to introduce like that. Why? Because I'm going to talk about São Paulo. And I'm going to talk about São Paulo not only because I'm based in São Paulo now, but I wanted to be absolutely sure that this is not a Brazilian phenomenon or a phenomenon from the South, the so-called South, which is indeed the periphery of capitalism, but it's more a generalized way. Second thing, before introducing and saying that we are not, I'm talking about São Paulo, but it's not about São Paulo. It's about everywhere. The second thing is that I have two intentions here while presenting this, and this is the introduction, and I jump into São Paulo case, which is the slides that I have prepared today. I think that we have two discussions here. One is a more theoretical discussion, and I'm going to talk about dispossessions and displacements, evictions, because I think this is what is really, really, really happening in our cities. But at the same time, I think I will bring here also a methodological discussion through the experience of the Observatory of Evictions in the metropolitan area of São Paulo. And I think we should discuss a lot in this is academic space, so we should ask ourselves the research we do, what serves the research we do. And I'm pretty much engaged, and I know, and I'm sure that many people that are here in this room are also engaged in housing justice research. And then there is a whole discussion about methodologies for housing justice research, housing justice, city justice, planning justice research. So I'm going to try to bring some questions also on that. So just to start our presentation in São Paulo and to give you a sense of this, I'm starting from bringing a picture of the municipality of São Paulo. It's a very tiny 11 million city. And I start with this image, which is the percentage of Black people residents in São Paulo by district. São Paulo is divided into 96 districts for demographic and administrative purposes. And you can see so clearly, and this is the prevalent image, I would say, in most of the cities from the periphery of capitalism. But I know it's been also increasingly a picture of a lot of cities in the US as well, which is, if you see, the more consolidated the city center, which is written there, which is this black mark, is downtown, the city center. And then you see here a very light or yellowish place, which is where the concentration of high middle class and middle class, but also most of cultural equipments, most of jobs and income generating activities, most of free museums and parks are located, and most of the good infrastructure in terms of subway lines or rapid transit lines are located, and they are basically white. So this is the image of segregation. White folks are segregated, white ghettos, I would say here, provoking our discussions are in this central space. And then as you go to the periphery, as you go towards the ends of the city, where infrastructure is lacking or is worse, or the schools are worse, or there is no schools, or no water, or no sewage, or no good public transportation, depending on it, you are, all these places are more black in terms of black residents. So you see very clearly the racial economic structure, the structural racism that structures our cities very clearly. But having said that, surprise, the real downtown, historic downtown, because the new center for middle class activities is more what is called here Pinheiros, Vila Mariana, Santo Amaro, for those who are familiar with São Paulo and Portuguese. The south is southwestern zone of São Paulo, and the historical downtown is a very well infrastructured place with a percentage of Black people. And I would say the whole machinery of planning instruments and projects that are put in place today in order to displace this very tiny part of the city, which is that have very good infrastructure, subways, schools, parks, urbanization, and still have Black residents living in, low-income residents living in, and most of them in either squatter buildings or tenements, tenement houses, board houses, homeless people, and we're going to see this picture afterwards. And then I bring you from the Observatory of Eviction, from our project, collective evictions in metropolitan São Paulo from November 2022 to June 2023. So it's a small period. And here we can see the concentrations of evictions and what are including threats of evictions. So collective squattering of land and buildings that are receive notice and are struggling to stay put, or people that had partially evicted or completely evicted. And here you can see how much the city center, downtown area, is one of the epicenter of these evictions in metropolitan São Paulo. Then also we work because this previous data, this data on collective eviction came from collaborative mapping. Collaborative mapping with the people which are also being threat, it's very important, comes from them, but also come from a network of organizations, research labs, NGOs, CBOs, that also lawyers that give free assistance to those who are under threat. And this collaborative mapping, they do the possibility for us to map something that is absolutely invisible in the data, or in the data provided by the city. Then another way of mapping evictions, and those are more individual evictions from each apartment or each home, mostly related to rent arrears-based evictions. So rental housing, also the city center is the place where we have a concentration of rental housing. And what we can see again is not only, and this data came from São Paulo State Court, which opens their data in a site, and we mining data and programming, we were able to map and see the territorial concentration of rent arrears-based evictions, and those are city, and we are doing that historically since 2012, more than 10 years now. So we have all the historical record of it. And then here we see specifically possession conflicts, which are evictions and displacements based on, of course, conflicts over tenure forms. And yes, what is conflict over tenure forms is private property, individual registered property in the cadastre versus every other forms of tenure. And of course, when I talk about colonization and coloniality, we cannot understand this process if we don't understand the fact that private property, and I'm not talking about neoliberal and financial world, I'm talking about the hegemony in the last 250 years of individual private property over any other form of link sorry, between individuals and the territory they occupy. Any collective individual links, any forms of possessions, all of that were in the world coming from Europe, United States, and the American Revolution, but coming from Central Europe and imposing over the planet as the one and only legitimate form of establishing links between the people and the place and the territory they occupy, and stigmatizing, residualizing, and making a hell the life of every other forms of tenure. So this is possession conflict, a possession conflict that, and why private property? Yes, because this is the one that permits the idea that the most important feature of this tenure type is the possibility of circulate. It's the possibility to be sold, to be bought, and not the possibility of enduring. So it's, I mean, there is this myth of homeownership, of the safest place, of the safest form of living. But indeed, what it is the one that is more free to circulate. So it's, if it is free to circulate, then also it's absolutely free in terms of not protected to be taken over from those who have more money to buy it. So part of the process of transformation, of course, have to do that, but also have to do with the machinery that was put in place historically in order to impose that this is the one, this is the legitimate, and all the others are less, are matter, or are criminal, are illegal, are informal, and all these ways of naming things by negative characteristics and not naming things by the diversity and the heterogeneity. And again, just to see here we see the municipality of São Paulo inside this form of a little dog with the ears, which is the municipality of São Paulo, 11 million, and then the metropolitan of São Paulo around its 35 municipalities, 20 million as a whole. And again, the density of conflict is in central area. And why the density of conflicts over possession is in the central area. Then if we go to see and to discuss what is the justification for evictions in terms of court evictions and process administrative evictions as well, because we have both. Then yes, possession tenure conflicts is the majority. But also you have the machinery, the environmental protection areas, which are the ones that should be protected by law. And of course, the environmental protected areas, as they are protected by law, and the corporate market, the corporate real estate financial complex cannot occupy it, then is the areas that are left over for the people to build their landscapes for life. So it's not by chance that you have a lot of conflicts and tenure conflicts and dispossessions and displacements in environmental protection areas. Then the famous discussions of risk prone. And this is the new frontier. Yes, because of climate change, now we have to take out people from risk prone areas. Yes, and that will be a massive process of displacement, dispossessions, and taking over in one more opening and of one more frontier of the real estate financial complex from the places where are presently landscapes for life. But also it's very important infrastructure building. And again, guess where the new infrastructure line is built? It's built exactly on the neighborhood who has more fragile in terms of the political economy of tenure, as I mentioned, ties with the land. So they are dispossessed without any compensation. So it's very cheap, or it's cheaper to dispossess those who don't have that, or public-private partnership, and even process of slum upgrading, who are also very responsible for displacements. Then again, here it's another data that I bring here, which is the concentration of homelessness, which are really people living on the streets. In São Paulo now we have approximately 50,000 people, maybe a little bit more than that, living literally on the streets, on pavements, and it's incredible. And we can discuss that. In the last 10 years, I would say a little bit before the pandemic, 2-3 years before the pandemic, and up to now, we have a most important real estate boom in terms of production of residential units in the history of São Paulo. More than 400,000 new residential units were being built, and at the same time, an explosion of homelessness. What? Yes, and that exactly because of the real estate residential units being. So please don't come with me with the idea that what we need to face our housing crisis, which is an emergency housing crisis everywhere, is to build more and more residential units. And I'm going to bring you the example of São Paulo, of how much perverse is that, because those residential units are serving much more to the real estate financial complex than to the needs of the people. So here again, you can see more concentration of homelessness exactly in the area, is in the central area and the central neighborhoods that are around it. Then again, if you see evictions here I'm giving a zoom. Each little point is one eviction. So we can see again the concentration of eviction in this area. And again, here I want also to discuss that because this mapping exercise, this collaborative mapping is done as a tool for the ones who are in the threat of evictions to recognize it as a common trend and not as an individual failure or individual political problem, but as a common trend and read it. And it's a very important tool to read and discuss urban planning and urban planning. So here we have the representation of threats of displacement, fires, because there is a lot of fires that start here and there and displace people, and actual displacement. And then we start talking about the combination of the process. So here is a map where we bring the new real estate developments, and I referred to a real estate boom, so I'm bringing that, and displacements and evictions, and we see clearly how much the southwestern part of the city, middle class, finance dominated white, is trying to take over the center and as a new frontier here. And this is what is represented here. Here, in a more, I would say, traditional way. Let me get here from here so you can see. Here, it's the real estate, the new real estate developments in the area. So what we can see that the price, I mean, it doesn't mean anything because the price is in reais, but what we can see that most of the developments that were done that have nothing to do with the income and the needs that the people who are living there in a very precarious situation. They are high class. There is a lot of studios to be rented out by Airbnb, which is in terms of the public policy, and I will refer to that because this is not only the market organization, but also very much fluid, incentivized, and provoked by public policy. And again, here are the ones that the price with the lower price. So we are talking about a very few, 6% of the units that have been produced have a price that have something to do with the needs of the people who are living there. But let's finish my presentation here with the public urban renewal project. This process of displacements and evictions that we saw here was 100% produced by the public policy. So the public policy which were able to, let me be bigger here so you can see me better. Okay. And there is several ones. São Paulo Urban Operation, which is a public-private partnership that started in the 90s. And this is like, and I have a researcher in the lab that said, is a matryoshka of plans and interventions for those who are familiar with the dolls, one inside the other, inside the other, inside the others. So it's a combination of housing, public-private partnership, a combinations with incentives to renovate buildings, a combinations with particular project, a combination of several projects together in the same place, exactly in the same territory, provoking. And here's some images to make me more clear. Those are, I'm going to bring and finish with that, the example of 3 blocks in Campos Elíseos. Campos Elíseos was a high-end neighborhood in the end of 19th century for the new coffee planters bourgeoisie. And in the 20th century, where they moved out towards other neighborhoods in the city, and there was an installation of a big bus terminal, the city bus terminal in the area became a very popular area with migrants, with travelers, with prostitution, with the red light district, and board houses, pensions, tenements, renting out beds, renting out rooms per hour. So this place was very popular in terms of the class combination. And there were several attempts to destroy this place. It was an attempt to transform and restore some buildings to provide and to create cultural equipment, like an opera house or a concert hall and things like that, with the idea of acupuncture, the idea that those new gourmet developments could attract back the middle class. That didn't happen. The territory was very organized and insurgent, and besides other processes. Then the final solution was real demolition, displacements, including a scene here of demolishing one of the buildings with somebody that was inside the building, where the building was demolished with the political force. And then here I bring a little piece of the work we had done in a different scale to see where the people were, the displaced people, where did they go? Most of them, they went to a new squatter or a new boarding room or a new very precarious place in the same area while it exists, but also the displacement led to people to very far away places, including the formation of new informal settlements in the peripheries of the area, creating new and also renting out rooms in favelas in the peripheries of the city. But I could not finish here my presentation without bringing to you, and I'm going to go out now from here to other place. Let me move. Yes, without bringing you what was also done by the people who were affected, the idea coming together and bringing with a new imagination, contesting the projects that were done, that saying that, and through a network of organizations and affected people, and bringing the possibility of using and transforming this place, but directly to those who are living there, instead opening this new front. Supposedly it was a gift that should move, but it didn't work, but no problem. Let's finish by presenting that. And let me go out of here. And I thank you very much. And I bring here Lab Cidade, and you can go to the website and see all the work that was done by the Observatory of Evictions and what it brings. And I urge all the groups and researchers that to join us in a collective planetary network of observatories of decolonization, but also a observatory and a network of resistance and insurgents. Thank you very much.
Raquel, that was absolutely amazing. You were literally in the room. So, so we're going to open the floor now to some questions. We've got about 20 minutes. We've got microphones on two sides, I think. So anybody want to stick their hand up, ask a question? Yeah? Where's the mics gone? Go. Sure. Hopefully you can hear.
My name is Carolina Stenberg. I'm actually from Argentina. I've been living in Chicago for more than 11 years. And I'm not very familiar with the case of São Paulo, but I was wondering, so in this cycle of investment and disinvestment, in the case of Buenos Aires, a lot of redevelopment have been advancing in similar to favelas in very informal settlements. And it seems to me that the case of São Paulo continues concentrating its investment in already invested areas, as you mentioned, highly resourceful. So my question would be, to what extent redevelopment has been encroaching areas that have been previously disinvested or informal settlements, for example?
Yeah. I'm trying to stop sharing, but I can't, so I can be more in the room. Wait 1 second. Where I can do that? Wait. Stop sharing. Oh, can't wait. Okay, no problem. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can see you really well.
Okay, perfect. So let me get an answer to that. Yes, part of the production of space in São Paulo is done by self-building settlements, either in squatter land or in bought land, in irregular parceling, in terms that the people, they buy pieces of land, but this land was not developed before, was not infrastructure before, and it was not adequately urbanized before. And then there is a long fight and struggle to get these places consolidated. But I have to say, and still it's still like that, but not so much in terms of what we are. And I think I should bring that, and I won't have time to develop this concept more, but we are working a lot on that right now. There was a big change also in the production of favelas squatting, because the financialization, it's not only corporate state from the top down, but it's also that is happening from the bottom. So financialización desde abajo, using the expression of my dear colleague Veronica Gago, from below, financialization from below, because part of the production, the machinery of production of those spaces outside the normative framework became more and more specialized, and I can say that they became less insurgent and a way of building insurgent citizenship from managing and creating this place, and more the result of entrepreneurship in between local entrepreneurs and the state. So I think it's being much more complex today and under an extractive logic. And just to give an example, the new frontier, very clear, of financialization of housing is around rental housing everywhere, with very different pictures in each city. But you have the enormous increase of rental housing in favelas, in self-built peripheries as well. And this is a phenomenon which is not only in Brazil, but I can affirm that is in Latin America as a whole as well. So I think it's a new issue that we have to discuss and understand much more.
Wonderful, thank you. We have another question. Oh, can we go here first and then we'll swap round?
Hello, Raquel. My name is Mercedes de Virgilio. I am also from Argentina. I have a question about which is the role of local government, state government, and federal government in the process of renewal, in the process of financialization of construction of
I
development.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for discussion. All the three levels are completely involved, although the projects and the renewal, the actual projects and renewal projects that are pushing towards transformation are much more local and state level. And depending on the composition, the political composition of each, because we are talking about a process of many, many years, decades, depending on the political composition, more state or more local or more integrated state and local together. But having said that, the role of national government, the national government have two roles which are absolutely central to this process. One is the monetary and fiscal and financial policy. And the thing, I mean, the most important thing that permits real estate development to take over the cities is also the creation of these financial figures like real estate investment trusts and other financial schemes that are highly promoted by national state because national state is the responsible for the monetary policy. So because of the monetary policy, also investments, what they say, investments in construction can be more or less attractive to financial capital, which is seeking the best yield, the best interest rate. For instance, in the case of Brazil, since the remuneration of other types of assets were less attractive, the remuneration of built space became very much attractive to financial capital, especially for financial capital who is seeking returns in medium and large term, like pension funds, like security and company safety companies, like the funds of countries who need this return not immediately, but in the medium and large term and long term, these returns. So that make possible for them to invest and not having immediately somebody living there and creating, including empty spaces, which are serving for absolutely nothing, but are using. And again, regulating or not rental, short-term rental, which is pretty much related normally to national legislation, not local legislation. So you have different roles of the different levels of government.
Wonderful, thank you, Raquel. We have another question, and then.
Hello, my name is Lorena del Castillo. Thank you for your presentation, and it's an honor to hear you directly, even if it's through a screen. But anyway, when I think about São Paulo and your work specifically the right to housing, I cannot. I think of also Lucy Earle and Holston, and I think about how they use the right to housing to stop like evictions and demolitions. And maybe I would like, because those papers were written a few years ago already, and maybe you can tell us more or less the details of how are these counter strategies working nowadays with demolitions and evictions?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that it's two things that you brought to the table, which are I think they're very important. The mobilization of right to housing and right to the city as a platform for struggling to stay put. Why this is important? Because I think that because everybody asked me, okay, you were talking about a very powerful process, international global process that is so powerful. How can we face that? How can we organize in order to stop that? It's so ways. It's so, but I think that every space that is lived and protected from the entry of capital, exactly the opposite of what governments are telling us. Instead of connecting places with capital, disconnecting places from capital, every place that is very difficult for financial capital to get in because of the complex ties, because of not perfect tenure form, because of very difficult ways in order to circulate, because there are too many people involved, like cooperatives, like community land trusts, like squatting. All of that today are areas liberated from the colonization. So I think that the struggles to stay put, the struggles to not being evicted are more important than, of course, the individual struggles to maintain a person where they live, not to destroy their lives. They have this overall effect on this urban warfare. And I think housing issues are becoming more and more pressing and relevant in many, many cities. And the housing struggles and the struggles around housing, I think, are being also gaining more traction. Having said that, I think very important new outcomes. Cities that are regulating Airbnb, for instance, more and more cities, and we have the example of New York. Yes, I know it was the hotel lobby that have done that. But having said that, yeah, it was important as well, because Airbnb is absolutely financial capital extracting from the work and the assets of the individuals who are doing that. So all the regulations on Airbnb are very important. All the anti-eviction work and the promotion of collective forms of ownership, which are also becoming more and more relevant, I think, in terms of housing alternatives around the world.
Thank you. I think we possibly have one more question. I'm going to have to look this way because I haven't looked this way yet.
Thank you, Raquel. It was really great to hear the story from São Paulo. And my question is, taking you back to where you started, why don't you use gentrification as a concept?
I was too scared to ask.
I knew somebody. It's not, please, it's not against the concept of gentrification, not at all. It's not, it's only because I think maybe gentrification is a simplification of the process, because we are not just talking about the substitution of one group to other, which is much more high-end. We are talking about something which is more profound and complex, which is the taking over by the real estate financial complex, which is something wider. But also we are talking indeed about dispossession, I would say, a process of dispossession that started with colonization and the denial of indigenous rights, and goes on and on and on and on, and it's reproduced by this new frontier, which is being constantly open. So I pretty much like the idea that primitive accumulation by dispossession, which is something that did not occur in the past, but is a constant and permanent process, and very structural way, and is a very structural form of capital and capitalism to organize space and territory. But having said that, I'm pretty sure, and I apologize because I'm pretty sure that there is a recent literature on gentrification that also deals with that, but I am ignorant on this literature, and I apologize for that.
Raquel, we're out of time. It was an absolute honour, and I hope you get better. We all wish you well.